Hey, listeners. I hope you are staying healthy
And safe.
and sane
And sane.
during these crazy, crazy times. Blair and I have been largely silent until now, mostly because we're not that good with words, as I'm sure you've noticed if you listen to this podcast very often. But that said, we do have a lot of very strong feelings and concerns about the racism in our country, particularly with the recent events that have sparked outrage and protests throughout the country. And one that just happened last night or the night before last in Atlanta at a Wendy's. I mean, this shit has just got to stop. It's just mind-boggling.
Absolutely crazy.
And so first of all, we just want to offer our deepest apologies to all African Americans. We are truly, deeply sorry for the suffering that you have endured because of our whiteness. And if you are not ashamed of your whiteness right now, you need to do a little bit of soul searching, because we caused this. We've let it continue all these years, and we can do better. We need to
do better. We need to change our mindset as privileged white Americans. And we need to fix this.
We need to fix it because we caused it. We caused it and we perpetuated it, and we benefited from racism. And the sooner we educate ourselves and figure out how to fix this, the better. It's so sad to me to think that we are now in 2020 and not much has changed at all. The bill that was before Congress, I think last week, a lot of the language that was in it was from a bill dated back to 1921 to end racism. And it didn't pass. So it's just really, really sick. And
you think about the history, and there's a really great video that I posted to my personal Facebook page, where a woman named Kimberly Latrice Jones talks about how racism and how life for African Americans has been for the past 400 years, including what happened in Tulsa, what happened everywhere. So give that a watch. We're going to put a link to that video in the description of this podcast. But the analogy that she uses of a Monopoly game is just so powerful and so outrageous that if you aren't outraged, but if you aren't outraged as a white person and don't understand how that applies and what a great analogy it is, then you need to wake the fuck up.
Yeah.
That is a problem.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that every single African-American person has PTSD. Like, how could you not, given all of the horrible things that they have been through? It's just crazy that it's gone on this long. And I'm just going to share my story. I grew up in a town just across the river from Louisville, Kentucky. And it was a huge neighborhood, all white people, and my dad happened to be a firefighter, and his the station was like just at the end of a park that was behind our neighborhood. But I remember one day my friend's dad came knocking at the door, and my dad wasn't home because he was working, and my mom answered the door, and he asked my mom to sign a petition to keep out this black family that wanted to purchase a home. And my mom said, absolutely not, I will not sign that. Now, my mom doesn't corroborate this part of my story, but I remember it specifically because the man said, well, I'll just come back when your husband gets home. And that's just not something you say to my mom. Like, I remember thinking Mr. Bostock's about to get a black eye or get slapped or something. So my mom said, you don't need to come back. We're not signing that petition. And so luckily no one signed the petition. And so this really wonderful black family moved in. And about a month later, I think I was probably 6 or 7 years old. I was teaching myself how to ride my bike, and I had training wheels on. And somehow, I'm super clumsy, and somehow I managed to fall over on this new family's mailbox and cut my head open. All I remember is blood streaming down my face and somebody picking me up and handing me off to my mom. So I go to the hospital, 11 stitches, 12 stitches, I don't know. I don't know how many stitches because I feel like I exaggerated that number for a while. But anyway, so it was Jasper who had moved in, the African-American family. It was Jasper and his wife, Cynthia. Jasper had ran out and put a handkerchief on my head and handed me off to my mom. And so my grandmother said, we need to buy him some new hankies because you ruined his hanky with your blood. So we go to the store and we buy him some handkerchiefs, and I take him, and I'd never actually met them or had the opportunity to talk to them until now. And so they invited me in, and I remember thinking they were the most stylish and put together people I'd ever seen. He was always very well dressed. He was a mortician, and Cynthia was a housewife. But her nails were perfectly done. Her hair was perfect, beautifully dressed. Like, they were just the coolest, nicest people ever. And so a couple weeks go by, and as I mentioned, my dad was a fireman, and we could actually hear his truck when it would leave the station, and we would run outside and wave to him. And I got to the point, what me and my siblings did when we were little, we could distinguish a fire truck from a ambulance and a police based on the sound of the siren. So we knew if we were going to see my dad or not. So this was in the middle of the night. I hear my dad's truck leave the station, and of course it was the middle of the night, so I wasn't going to run out and wave to him. But I was laying in my bed, and then the siren stopped, like right in front of our house. And I'm like, wow, that's weird. And so I get up because I was super nosy, and my mom was like at the door, and my dad came over and they were talking, and mom was like, just go back to bed. And I could see the lights flashing, in my window. And so then the next day, I asked my mom what had happened, and the KKK had burnt a cross in their front yard, in Cynthia and Jasper's front yard. And so I walked over to their front yard and looked at it, and it was just this giant charred cross in their front yard. And I was young, but I knew enough to know that meant that hateful people did not like the fact that African Americans lived there. And it was just so insane to me. And to know that this shit is still happening, and that African Americans can't even let their kids go outside without worrying that they're they're going to get killed.
And
I mean,
to put this into context, and not to age you, but we're talking about the early 70s.
yeah.
And to put that into historic context, that was less than 10 years after the first segregated black student went to an elementary school.
Yeah. It's just unbelievable. And so, right now, like, what the fuck to do about the police? I mean,
I feel like it all has to change.
It must. It must change. And one of our friends put it really well. He said, they're saying that not all police are bad apples, but they need to prove it. If you're not a bad apple, you need to prove it, because if you're complicit, if you're standing by and watching your colleague holding his knee on someone's throat for 8 minutes and 46 seconds until he is dead, you're just as bad as him. I mean...
And if you're shooting somebody in the back
when they're running away,
when they're running away just because they didn't pass a field sobriety test.
And they had his car there. It's not like they wouldn't be able to find him. And who are they? They're supposed to be protectors. They aren't the judge and the jury and the executioner. That the whole system needs to change. I mean, it's all really, really messed up. And it has to change. And that bitch in Central Park, that just blows my mind. That woman would weaponize her whiteness against a black man. Like,
when she was clearly in the wrong.
How is that not a hate crime? Like, how is she not fined or in jail? It just makes me sick to see that video. For her to, like, she knew exactly what she was doing. I'm going to call the police and tell them that a black man is attacking me. What the hell?
Yeah.
It just makes me sick. Back in June of last year, I actually wrote an email to the Columbus Foundation because I'm super fond of the work they do. They do really good work. And I thought, who better to partner with to figure out reparations? Like, if we can't do it on a national level, let's at least do it on a local level. And and
if not on an individual level, at least on an institutional level.
So he wrote back, and this is part of what he said. And this is from Dan Sharp at the Columbus Foundation. He said, the philanthropic field struggles with the direct response via a reparations fund and stepping into a role that many indeed think should be a government response. That field is, however, having success at the deliberate focus on equity within our work. This prioritization is important as it educates and puts philanthropic dollars at work to address systemic racism and its impact on historically oppressed peoples in the U.S. So they're doing a lot of thoughtful work, and there are places that you can contribute to at the Columbus Foundation that help people of color. But, I feel like reparations are long overdue. I don't know exactly what it will look like, but I think it should definitely include forgiveness for all student loans for all African Americans. I think that it should be free tuition, college tuition for all African Americans. I think that they should get zero interest or extremely low interest on mortgage rates for either the life of a 30-year loan or at least half of it, because of how we have put every possible obstacle in their way so that they are not successful.
And I'm just going to throw this in there. I feel like it should include Native Americans as well.
Oh, yeah, we treat them like shit too, but I think
I'm just
right
saying,
now, yeah.
I know that there's a focus, and of course, we have to talk about Black Lives Matter because that has to change. But there are other minorities who have also suffered at the hands of privileged white people.
Yeah. And, the whole taking down the Confederate statues and all of that, I 100% think that should be done. But I think that they should be placed in a museum along with the Confederate flag, and it should be the racist museum, and we should use it as a learning tool for all people how not to be. And I think the Confederate flag should be outlawed, just like the swastika is outlawed in Germany.
Absolutely.
But I think that we have to remember these assholes, because just we can't forget.
No.
We can't forget the history, and there should be required reading in schools about racism and about the history in America, and how, the story about Tulsa. Like,
right.
I didn't even know that story until like 2 years ago, because I was listening to NPR. I think it was like This American Life or whatever. And you had said you didn't know about it.
Until watching the Watchmen series on HBO.
So, I mean, these are things that that we should educate ourselves about. And the National Museum of African American History and Culture, if you go to their website, they have some really wonderful tools on how to not be a racist asshole and other things, and how to teach your children. I think it's a real shame that some people are not including their kids in the protests, and they're not talking about this with them. I mean, you want your conversations be age appropriate, but you're just perpetuating the problem of racism if you're not teaching your children young. And it has tools on there to teach you how to talk with your children.
And a really important point that they make is that it is not enough to not be racist anymore. We have to be anti-racist. We have to fight together against racism.
Yeah. And I'm very, very proud of the protesters, and they have been protesting tirelessly, and I'm proud.
For more than 2 weeks now.
Yeah, and I'm proud of the people who are supporting the protesters. Really annoyed by the police and by the news reports that say that police are only attacking bad protesters. That's not true. We were there.
No.
And there was no one being violent or out of line, and they just indiscriminately started pepper spraying people completely unprovoked. So, police, you need to get your shit together. But I think that we need to ask ourselves, what are we going to do when the protests end? What are we going to do?
How do we make the change? How do we help the entire community and the government change to end systematic racism?
And to make things right.
We
do need to make things right. Well, it's heavy, but I think it's an important conversation.
And this is the thing. It's hard to talk about this, but it's a fact. And it's something that we all need to now deal with.
Yeah. Lean into the discomfort.
Yeah.
Talk about racism, I mean. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, listeners. We hope that you will do your part to help end racism in this country. It has to be done.
It has to be done.
We have the power of our voice, our pen, and our purse to affect change. You can make a donation to Yes We Can Columbus.
That would be yeswecanycolumbus.org. You can also make a donation to the Columbus Foundation or one of our near and dear favorites, the Hardy Center. Definitely write your mayor, call city council, and get out and vote in November.
Yeah, and also if you can encourage city council and the mayor's office to provide some sort of tax incentives to grocery stores so that they'll open up grocery stores and food deserts. I don't think that people realize how many food deserts there are in this city. And banks. There are a lot of the minority areas don't have banks, which is just insane.
Right. Another thing we can do is shop at Black-owned businesses.
Absolutely.
And there are several lists online that I've seen where you can find out, where to shop. And now, with all of the COVID-19 stuff that's going on, and this is compounding it, a lot of small businesses are struggling.
Yeah. So I know Columbus Monthly has a list of small, minority-owned businesses. So.
Yeah.
All right. We could do this.
Yeah.
Cheers.
We have to.
Yep.
Cheers.
Cheers.